A small landlord who happens to be an active duty military officer had her home stolen from her by a squatter. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and once again, it's going over the whole issue of squatters. Obviously, squatters are the worst case scenario for landlords, okay? We imagine somebody getting into our home, refusing to leave, claiming they have a lease, and then the police not wanting to remove them. Now, I keep covering stories about this because I want to keep attention on the topic. I read about how in some places the law actually does allow the police to remove these people if you sign a sworn affidavit or something like that, right? But this is not the case in the majority of states. So what I would like to see personally is the laws change so that we can get rid of squatters easily. Okay, we need more protections from these people. Only thing they're doing is stealing our homes from us, and then when they find out that, hey, we're actually going to get rid of them, they trash our homes on top of that, and that's complete garbage. Okay, it stomps all over our property rights, and it looks at these people as though they are actual legal tenants when they're nothing but criminals and thieves. Okay, and they should be treated as such. Okay, there's laws out there for trespassing, there's laws out there for property damage, etc., and the police need to use them on them. Okay, squatters have no right whatsoever, in my opinion, and they should be kicked to the curb. And if they refuse to leave, we're going to take them out of there by force. Okay, so in a lot of these cases, landlords, they're taking the law into their own hands because they're like, hey, you know what? The police aren't helping me. And people can get hurt like that. I don't want to see that happen to anybody. I don't want to see anybody getting hurt because the landlord felt they had to take the law into their own hands because the police didn't want to help them. That is stupid, okay? And they are creating this situation. These squatters, they're garbage people. And in this case in particular, in this story, this person, he's a career criminal. Obviously most of them are. I mean, who else would have the balls to go up into someone else's home and pretend like you live there? What a joke. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. I asked a lot of questions about squatters in my last video, right? Or not my last video about squatters. I asked what the state laws that people had where they invest and where they live, how they treat squatters. And fortunately, a lot of states, they do allow the police to help out. But you know what? If you live in a state where they do not help, well, you're stuck with going to eviction court. You're stuck hiring an eviction attorney and trying to prove your case. And meanwhile, this person gets to stay in your property for however long that might take. In places like California, it could be months, years. Okay. In more landlord friendly places like Georgia, like in this article, it might be a month or two, but that's long enough to basically cost you tens of thousands of dollars. So anyway, if you have any more information about where you live and invest and how they treat squatters, go ahead and write a comment down below. Now, this article is coming from WSBTV.com, and it says, Army officer says squatter moved into her DeKalb County home while she was on duty. Now he won't leave. And this article actually has a video with it, and I'll play that for you right now.
He's not a tenant. He's a squatter.
There are beware of dog signs in some windows, cardboard covering others. A car in the driveway of Lieutenant Colonel Delia DeRay's Ellenwood home in DeKalb County, where someone she's never met moved in without her knowledge or permission and won't leave.
I felt violated. Had I not been serving my country, I would have been in my home.
DeRay is full-time active duty command staff with the Army Reserves stationed in Chicago. She was renting her DeKalb County home, but after a $35,000 renovation, put it up for sale.
I got a cash offer. It was under contract.
And that's when she says this man, Vincent Simon, apparently moved in, claiming this was his lease, that he'd paid $19,000 up front for 6 months.
The police called the number that's on the lease. It doesn't exist.
DeRay went to police, who told her it was a civil matter. This week, she served Simon with eviction papers, but he has a right to respond and have the case heard by a judge.
I can't ask them to leave. I can't put them out.
Vincent Simon has a long criminal history, including convictions for guns, drugs, and theft charges. DeRay saw him moving giant safes into the house.
All right, you saw the video. Let's get into the article. A U.S. Army officer says a squatter moved into her DeKalb County home while she was serving on active duty, and now she can't have him evicted. She told Channel 2 consumer investigator Justin Gray that she found out when her real estate agent was making final preparations to sell the house. He's not a tenant, he's a squatter, Lieutenant Colonel Adalia Dare said. There are beware of dog signs in some windows and cardboard covering others at her Ellenwood home in DeKalb County. And now you saw the video, right? This is a nice looking home. This is a nice looking neighborhood, okay? This isn't some cheap hood house down in the projects. No, I mean, this looks like a nice suburban neighborhood, yet they're still facing the exact same issues as you would get in the inner city areas. So that tells you right there that, hey, even if you are a landlord or property owner in a nice part of town, you can still be a victim of this same nonsense. Dare says someone she's never met moved in without her knowledge or permission and now won't leave. I was beside myself. I felt violated. Had I not been serving my country, I would have been in my home, Dare told Gray. Dare is full-time active duty command staff with the U.S. Army Reserves and is stationed in Chicago. She was renting out her Metro Atlanta home, but after a $35,000 renovation, she put it up for sale. So yeah, like I said, she is a small landlord. She previously had been renting it out, and I guess either the tenant left or she got rid of the tenant, whatever, right? The place was sitting empty while she was going through and doing this $35,000 renovation with the hopes of selling the place afterwards, right? And this is pretty common. When you're doing a renovation, you really can't have a tenant in there, and you're not going to be over there every day. But people are looking out for this. Okay, there are these scam artists, such as the person in this story, who are running around. They're looking for places that are for sale or for rent that might be empty so that they can move on in and then pretend as though they are a tenant when they are not. I got a cash offer. It was under contract, she said. That's when Dare says Vincent Simon apparently moved in. Simon claimed he had a lease and that he'd paid $19,000 up front for 6 months. The police called the number on the lease. It doesn't exist, Dare said. Dare went to the police and was told it was a civil matter. Yep. See, in this situation, like you sit there and you're like, okay, well, this is complete garbage. But you know what? These squatters, they know, well, we can't be removed from trespassing if we have a lease. So what they'll do is they'll just get online, create a lease, make up names, make up phone numbers, make up everything, right? Well, here's my logic, right? It doesn't take much investigative work to figure out that, hey, a person who doesn't own a home cannot rent it out to someone else. So unless this paperwork is signed by the rightful owner, then or their like property management company, so someone who's been given the legal right to rent it out, then it's void. It's complete nonsense. Anybody could figure that out. It doesn't take any investigative work whatsoever to say, hey, the person who signed this, they don't own the house. The person over here who's holding the deed, they're the actual owner. So this is a fraudulent lease. We shouldn't have to go through the eviction process for that. But no, they create this mess where you're going through eviction process, and every time you got to pay a lawyer to go and do anything, it's going to be expensive. It's not going to be cheap. So she's probably out thousands of dollars, not including lost rent, not including the fact that she had this place under contract to be sold and the whole deal fell through. Now, hopefully, on top of that, he didn't do too much damage to the inside. So when she finally does get him out of there, she doesn't have to go through and do another rehab, spend tens of thousands of more dollars for all the damage that this guy is doing. Who knows what he's doing in there? Like I imagine with his criminal record, he is selling drugs or doing drugs, or he's got something illegal going on in there. Okay. And that is awful. I mean, I think about how a house can be damaged after they cook meth in it. And, this is not a good situation. This is why, we have to do everything possible that we can to make sure that we don't get hit by these squatters. Now, some people suggested, hey, put an alarm system on the home. Like, yeah, that could help. That could certainly help. At least if somebody was to break in there, you would be notified immediately. You could call the police immediately and say, hey, the place has been broken into. Please roll by there, I am in Chicago. I am not in the house. This isn't my real estate agent. So, these people are trespassing. And maybe if you do that, even if they pull out, but that's the other question. If they still pull out the lease and like, oh well, I live here, yeah, something is wrong. So, other things I thought about were you boarding up the windows, like I've seen that usually in cheaper neighborhoods where you literally are boarding up the windows and boarding up the doors, like barricading them essentially so that people can't get in. But I don't know how well that would fly in a place with an HOA, a little bit nicer suburban neighborhood if you got all the windows boarded up in your house. But the options are limited. The options are limited, and if a person is motivated enough, they're going to get in there. And then you're stuck in a scenario where the law doesn't want to help you. That's why it's important that we get these laws changed, in my opinion. This week, she served Simon with eviction papers, but he has a right to respond and have the case heard by a judge. I can't ask them to leave. I can't put them out. The police can't put them out. What justice is that? Dari said. Channel 2 Action News learned that Simon has a long criminal history, including convictions for guns, drugs, and theft charges. Dare saw him moving giant safes into the house. Yeah, and you saw the video, okay? The safes are probably gun safes. And this is a guy who already has convictions for gun crimes. So, pretty obvious what's inside. So, bad case scenario. Hopefully, this landlord is able to get this criminal up out of her property. What I want to see is the laws change so that we can get squatters out of our properties as quickly as possible. And until then, we'll keep doing whatever we can to make sure that our homes are secure, to make sure that squatters don't go in and invade. And this could happen to any of us, okay? This could happen to me, this could happen to you. And a motivated squatter can definitely cost you tens of thousands of dollars.